Hi, and welcome to a new video on our channel. Ego Exposed. Ego Exposed Game Over. A method. A method that I like to share with you. So in this video I will present this method we call Ego Exposed Game Over for breaking free from the cycle of ego-driven connections in just 11 steps. Ready? This method, Ego Exposed Game Over, can be a powerful tool for breaking free from the cycle of ego-driven connections. The visualization coupled with the self-reflection prompts will help you expose how the ego operates in your relationships and empower you to take back control of your energy and happiness. Let's start by defining what a healthy and untraumatized ego actually is. The concept of a healthy and untraumatized ego mind in childhood refers to an inner state where the self-concept is rooted in secure attachment, safety, and a natural sense of worthiness. The ego in this context is a developmental structure of the mind that helps organize experiences, relate to the world, and develop a sense of self. Here is an exploration of the traits and features, perception, and purpose of such a mind. How we perceive a healthy ego mind. An untraumatized ego mind or a healthy ego mind appears as playful. We see the world as a playground of opportunities and we are curious and eager to experience them. It's about innocence. We do not interpret experiences through the filter or fear of guilt or inadequacy. An unhealthy ego mind is receptive, open to love, open to care and new experiences without defense mechanisms. In essence, the ego begins as a tool for exploration and survival, but if nurtured well, it can evolve into a vessel for self-expression, empathy, and purpose. When untraumatized, healthy, it remains aligned with the natural essence of the self rather than distorting it. On the other hand, a traumatized ego mind shaped by unmet childhood needs develops patterns of thought, belief, emotion, and behavior to protect itself from perceived threats and to navigate a world that feels unsafe or unpredictable. These adaptations often fall in the categories, you may know them, of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, manifesting as tools or strategies this ego uses to manage anxiety around safety and control. Let's summarize the traits and the features of a traumatized ego mind. Let's see if you recognize one or several of them. Number one, hypervigilance. Constant scanning of the environment for potential danger or rejection. It overinterprets neutral or ambiguous stimuli as threats, for example, assuming someone's silence means disapproval. The second one, rigid beliefs. It adopts fixed beliefs to create a sense of control. For instance, I must be perfect to be loved, or people cannot be trusted. Black and white thinking emerges as a way to simplify and cope with a complex, threatening world. A third trait, an overactive inner critic. It develops harsh self-judgment to preempt external criticism. For instance, if I punish myself first, others won't have to. and it reinforces feelings of inadequacy and shame. Trait number 4, emotional dysregulation. A difficulty processing or tolerating strong emotions, often oscillating between emotional numbness and overwhelm. Emotions like anxiety, shame, and anger dominate the internal landscape. Trait number 5, over-dependence or avoidance. Overly reliant on others for validation or emotional security, which is fawning behavior, or avoiding close relationships to protect from a vulnerability, the flight or freeze behavior. Trait number 6, survival-oriented thinking. You focus on short-term survival rather than long-term growth or fulfillment. Creativity, curiosity, and playfulness are suppressed in favor of control and predictability. How to turn a traumatized ego mind back into a healthy ego mind again? The healthy ego mind, the perception is of unconditioned purity, an ego mind that sees itself as worthy and whole without distortions caused by unmet needs or negative external conditioning. Maybe the first part of this video made you realize you are running around with a traumatized ego mind. Perhaps you would like to hear from me now how to get back there again, to the healthy ego mind, being playful, innocent, and receptive again. Great, let's do this. Let's begin with step 1 of the ego method. Ego exposed, game over. Step number 1. Visualize your ego as a separate persona, as we call it. Imagine your ego as an inner voice seeking confirmation, seeking affection, acknowledgement, validation, and connection with something or someone outside of you. Disconnect from the idea that this voice is an integral part of you. You can even put a chair some distance away from you and imagine this persona sitting there. Perhaps you can identify it with a partner, a friend, or a family member. So, put a chair in front of you and put the visualized persona on this chair. Disconnect from the voice in your head. Step number 2. Name this persona. Give it a name. The first name that pops up in your mind or imagination. Excuse me. This will allow you to distance yourself further from this inner voice and observe it as a separate entity. Look at this chair opposite to you, with the persona that you have given a name, that you have visualized. Talking the talk, it usually talks, all about fear, unsafety, and control. Step number 3. Observe the persona. Now that you have named this persona, begin to observe its actions and behaviors. And ask yourself, when you are sitting there as the observer of this persona, how do you feel about this persona opposite to you? What are your thoughts about this persona? What narrative is this persona constantly telling you about your worthiness and value? How does it make you feel about living up to expectations or about the love you deserve? And does this persona make you feel like you always need to do more or satisfy them? How does this persona react to your self-sacrifices? Do they ever seem truly satisfied or content? Does it make you feel like you are falling short? Or even that it's your fault that your persona isn't happy? Is this persona manipulative or deceptive in any way? Does this persona, this inner voice, use tactics to control you? And are you willing to admit these tactics? Step number 4. Acknowledge the manipulative behavior of this persona. Be honest with yourself. Do you see now through this persona's manipulative tricks, but still cover them up with compassion and forgiveness? Or with excuses? Or with denial? Do you brush their actions, your actions through this persona under the carpet to avoid the abandonment they threaten you with? Acknowledge. Step number 5. Examine the power dynamics. Reflect on how this persona urges you to stay close, to listen to their demands, and constantly be at their service, even at the expense of your own happiness. Notice how their satisfaction seems to be your sole focus, even when it means neglecting your own needs. Step number 6. Recognize your energy drain. How does this persona's influence make you feel energetically? Do they convince you that their happiness should be prioritized over your own? Your inner peace? Have you ever found that it never seems to work, no matter how hard you try to meet their needs, your persona's needs? Again, be honest with yourself. Did it work in the past? Does it work right now? Or do you end up feeling frustrated, bitter, angry, lonely, exhausted, misunderstood? Step number 7. Realize the ego's control over you. This inner voice, represented by the persona, keeps you on a leash, controlling your actions through the illusion of safety and control. By sacrificing your happiness to please this persona, you're caught in a never-ending cycle of trying to please it, only to find that it never truly works. You're never satisfied yourself, which is reflected through this persona. This is the ego's need for control, and it leaves you eventually exhausted and stuck. Step number 8. The fear of abandonment and its illusion. The ego thrives on the fear of abandonment, betrayal, deception, or rejection. If you cannot meet its demands, it makes you believe you will be abandoned. You will not receive the value, the validation that you crave from the outside world. But what would you do if this persona were a real partner, or a parent, or a family member, or a friend? Would you continue to sacrifice your happiness to please them, even if it drained you? Additionally, at the end, it has or will drain you eventually. And then what? When you have absolutely no more energy or solution to sacrifice even more, what will happen? You will eventually be forced to give up, or you will be given up. Or you will be given up on and discarded. And this may sound harsh, but let's again be honest with each other. Step number 9. Recognizing the fear you are attached to, the fear you are in love with, so to speak. Because that's the reason why you hold on to it. The fear you are holding on to isn't a love. You are in love, but it isn't love. It's the fear of not belonging, not being worthy, or not fitting in. The ego feeds on this fear, convincing you that your worth is determined by what you do for others, not who you are. And this is the false belief that keeps you trapped in toxic relationships and self-sacrifice. Step number 10. The realization of true healing. This cycle of self-sacrifice and the pursuit of validation will never lead to fulfillment. The proof lays in your past and current present. The ego, your ego, the persona, is like a SpongeBob character. It constantly drains your energy like a sponge, but can never be truly satisfied. The more you give, the more it takes, and eventually, when you can no longer provide what it needs, it will abandon or reject you and make you feel miserable. But that's not your responsibility with respect to your own happiness. So let's move to step number 11. The last one, the action step, breaking free. Now, take a moment to consider one small step you can take now, today, to reclaim your energy and sense of self-worth. This might mean setting a boundary, honoring your own needs, or choosing to detach from the belief that you have to please others or your ego mind, the persona in front of you, to be worthy, to receive a value and validation. Realize that true healing comes from within, and others' approval doesn't determine your value. Realize also how much the traumatized ego in your mind resembles the traits we contribute to toxic and narcissistic tendency and people. Then you may also realize that its control and manipulated behavior, the controlling and manipulative behavior by your inner narc ego mind, will eventually destroy you as it goes in a real life relationship with a real life narc partner. Separate from your own inner narc ego. See through its gaslighting, its manipulation, lying, deceiving, rejecting your true self. It's blame shifting, and reclaim your own life, your own power, your own control, your own worth, and your own love. Thank you for watching. See you next time.